It's early in the morning out here in the vineyards, probably before most people have had a chance to think about their first cup of coffee. But there's no better time to be in the vineyards. Air is cool, the air is still, nothing but the sound of birds and insects and the occasional jet flying overhead. My name is Adam LaZarre, and I'm the winemaker for Cycles Gladiator. This is one of the great vineyards that I use for Cycles Gladiator wines. It's a pretty majestic vineyard with a lot of ocean influence. And these are the types of influences that I want in the grapes that go into this wine. Welcome to my sanctuary. This is the barrel room, Cycles Gladiator in particular. And this is the place that I go to find peace and tranquility. It's quiet, it smells good. And when I'm putting blends together, I come in here with a thief, a glass, a little graduated cylinder, and this is where a lot of the magic happens. Any of the work that I do with Cycles Gladiator is usually done in the barrel, and that's how I manipulate the flavors and structure and give the wines the types of spices and the spice rack that it needs. Starting at the beginning, it is January of 2005 when we launched our first bottle of Cycles Gladiator. We had come across the reproduction, this poster, a reproduction of this magnificent advert from the 1890s from the Gladiator Bicycle Company. It had this beautiful red-headed woman on a bicycle. There were wings on the pedals, which I think is actually kind of important, going up into the stars. And the other important thing is that we discovered that at the time of this poster's creation, there were about 150 bicycle companies in Paris, France. They were the world leaders in production of bicycles. And there are a couple of reasons for this. One of the main ones is that Susan B. Anthony had been in Paris just up to that point on her World Suffragette Tour, and she had declared that the bicycle was the greatest contribution to women's liberation the world had ever seen. These adverts were designed and geared towards women. It represented freedom, it represented liberation, it just represented being able to be free. Cycles Gladiator Chardonnay. This one is one of my favorites to make for a number of reasons. One, I get to work with vineyards that I've worked with for many, many, many years and am very comfortable with. And second, it's because it's probably the most challenging wine in the world to make correctly. We're not making a Chassagne Montrachet here. We're trying to make a really good, solid Chardonnay that has all of the characteristics that you want in a Chardonnay and still be really, really yummy. The vineyards primarily come from the Paso Robles Highlands, which is a sub-appellation of Paso Robles, east of and south of Paso Robles itself. So it gets a lot of cool ocean influence. And in fact, the vineyard is so cool that we grow Pinot Noir right alongside the Chardonnay. The second primary vineyard source for this wine is in Edna Valley. So Edna Valley is its own appellation. It's in southern San Luis Obispo County, just north of Santa Barbara. And it sits about 4 miles as a crow flies to the ocean. So it gets a ton of cool ocean air, a lot of fog in the morning, very slow ripening. So that component brings me a boatload of acid. The Chardonnay from the Paso Highlands brings a lot of marzipan and melon and green apple. And on occasion, I will actually toss in a little bit of Russian River Chardonnay to add a little strength and a little structure to the wine. This is a wine that, particularly at this time of the year where it gets to 100 degrees in Paso Robles, I like to drink at home ice cold. It's absolutely perfect, so I hope you guys enjoy this. So this is our Cycles Gladiator Pinot Noir. And before I went further, I wanted to explain that all of the Cycles Gladiator wines are California appellated. And what that gives me an opportunity to do is blend from a wide range of appellations within the state in order to create the perfect flavor. I think it's a dream for a winemaker to have as wide of a spectrum of different fruit and wines to work with. Although our wines in particular are really coastal, and in fact Central Coast is where we source most of the fruit. And in fact that's the case for the Cycles Gladiator Pinot Noir. Most of the fruit comes from Monterey, and so you get a ton of acid real bright cherry, and then I will often blend a little bit of Clarksburg Pinot Noir from the Delta in, or maybe even a little Russian River Sonoma Coast to broaden the spectrum. This is our most popular wine that we make under the Cycles line. I love this wine. I drink this wine at home. I think you'll enjoy it. This is the Cycles Gladiator Cabernet Sauvignon. This is a particularly exciting wine for me to work with because I live in Paso Robles, and the majority of the grapes for this wine come from Paso Robles. So it's not that far for me to drive to go visit the vineyards. Now, it's a blend primarily of Paso. I will often use a little Lodi. I have used other varietals or other appellations, that is, in the past in this blend, and it changes from year to year. As a Bordeaux variety, I also like to blend other Bordeaux varieties into it, and will often have Merlot or Petit Verdot or even maybe a little Cabernet Franc or Malbec in it. One of the things about Cabernet is fun to work with. It's very malleable in the winery. Unlike, say, Pinot Noir or Chardonnay or Grenache, where the wine is only as good as the grapes that come in, you can do a lot of things in the winery to change the direction of the flavors of Cabernet Sauvignon. And so I like to use oak as my tool to change the flavors and structure the wine a little differently. So it'll often anywhere have between 15 and 25% New American and French oak in it, based on the strength of the vineyard and the strength of the wines within the barrels. And so, again, this is a really fun wine for me. I'm looking for a particular structure and flavor. It often reminds me of a Chilean Cabernet, where you have some of these more rustic flavors, a lot of black cherry core. Doesn't have a lot of the really grainy texture, grainy tannins in the wine, but it's really more fruit driven, and that's the strength of Paso Robles. It's the strength of this Cabernet. Hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I like making it. Cycles Gladiator Zinfandel. Zinfandel is synonymous with the United States and with California in particular. You know, both Italy and Hungary lay claim as the source for this wonderful variety. We do know that it's been here for at least 150 years in California. And in fact, in Paso Robles, where I live and where most of this wine comes from, we have vineyards that are over 125 years old, and they're still going strong. Zinfandel is a really interesting grape to work with. It tends to ripen unevenly. We would call them beach balls and BBs. You might have very big berries and very tiny berries. Some are black, some are still green. The real heroes of Zinfandel winemaking are actually the growers, the vineyard managers and the vineyard foremen and the people that actually work with this grape. If it weren't for them, we wouldn't be able to have Zinfandel at all. So these guys and gals work hard to make sure that the fruit is consistent throughout the entire fruit zone and throughout the vineyard. So when they bring the fruit into the winery, it makes it pretty easy for me to get this stuff into a really dark and bold and berry-laden wine. I will often blend a little Petit Syrah into it, add some dark fruit, another layer of flavors. It can be a little one-dimensional on its own, so it's one of these grapes that really, really likes to have a blender tossed into it. So, Cycles Gladiator Zinfandel. Hope you enjoy.